History is written by the victors. They said children were burned here, that mothers smiled as priests threw their infants into the fire. Rome knew how to write propaganda. 814 BC, Phoenicians sailed from the east and founded a city here. According to legend, it was Queen Dido who built it. She fled Tyre after her brother murdered her husband. She was looking for a new home. She found an empire. They called it Carthage, the new city. We know it as Carthage. For 6 centuries, this was the wealthiest city in the ancient world. It controlled North Africa, Sicily, Sardinia, southern Spain. Its navy was unmatched. Its population reached 700,000 people. And then Rome came. 46 BC, in 17 days, Rome erased 600 years of history. 50,000 survivors were sold into slavery, libraries burned, temples destroyed, and all that remained of Carthage were the words of its enemies. But before all of that happened, there was one man who came close to changing the course of history. His name was Hannibal. Hannibal was 9 years old when his father took him by the hand and said, "Swear eternal hatred toward Rome." The boy swore and he kept his word. His father, Hannibal Barca, fought his entire life. Carthage had lost the first war, lost Sicily, paid reparations to the enemy. For Hannibal, this was not peace, it was slow humiliation. He left for Spain to build a new power and died there when Hannibal was 18. At 26, Hannibal became commander-in-chief of the Carthaginian army in Spain. Not by inheritance, the soldiers chose him themselves, unanimously. The Carthaginian oligarchy watched with unease. Too popular, too independent, too much like a man with his own agenda. The wealthy merchants who ruled Carthage feared powerful generals almost as much as they feared enemies. They were right to be afraid. Hannibal did have a plan. Before he crossed into Gaul, he sent his wife home, Emilch, an Iberian princess. He had married her in Spain. He put her on a ship to Carthage and watched it disappear. He never saw her again. Some men go to war for glory. Hannibal went to war for a promise made to a dead father. He left behind everything that was his and walked toward the mountains. 218 BC. Hannibal made a decision the entire civilized world called madness. He would march on Rome, not by sea. Rome controlled the sea, by land, through Gaul, through the Alps, in winter, with an army, and with elephants. This was not recklessness. It was the only way to strike Rome from the side where no one had ever expected an attack. The mountains met them with everything at once. Narrow paths above sheer drops. Local tribes rolling boulders down onto the column from above. Horses falling into ravines. Men freezing at night, in the same clothes they had worn fighting under the Spanish sun, in sandals. According to ancient sources, at one of the passes a sheer rock face blocked the way. Hannibal ordered fires built directly against the stone and vinegar poured over it. The heated rock cracked. That is how they crossed the Alps, 1 meter at a time. Less than half the army made it into Italy. Of 37 elephants, only 1 survived the spring. He led his army over the roof of the world, half dead, in sandals, and it still brought Rome to its knees. Tixinus, Trebia, Lake Trasimene, Cannae. 4 battles, 4 catastrophes for Rome. At the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, approximately 70,000 Roman soldiers were destroyed in a single day. According to Livy, the Senate received 8 measures of rings taken from the fingers of fallen Roman knights to grasp the scale of the loss. Rome was in panic. Allies began crossing to Carthage's side. One more strike and it would all be over, but the strike never came. Carthage sent no reinforcements. The trading oligarchy that ruled the city feared Hannibal almost as much as Rome. Too popular, too independent, they sabotaged his supply. He asked for men, they sent a third. He asked for money, they stalled. Rome, meanwhile, played a smarter game. While Hannibal roamed Italy undefeated, Roman legions under the young Scipio marched into Spain. Not to defeat Hannibal, but to cut out his roots. They drove Carthage out of Spain, cut off the supply lines, stripped Hannibal of the base from which his men, money and resources came. The new strategy in Italy: avoid open battle, wear him down, burn the fields. Hannibal spent 15 years marching through Italy, undefeated, but growing weaker with every year. And then a letter arrived from his brother. Hasdrubal had assembled an army and was coming the same way. Over the Alps, if the brothers united, Rome would have no chance. The Romans intercepted the messenger, read the letter, and threw every force they had at Hasdrubal. The Battle of the Metaurus, 207 BC, Hasdrubal was defeated and killed. The Romans cut off his head and threw it into Hannibal's camp. That is how Hannibal learned of his brother's death. "I see the fate of Carthage," he said. 202 BC, Scipio landed in Africa, right beneath the walls of Carthage. For the first time in 15 years, Hannibal was called home. He returned undefeated from Italy and was marching toward the only defeat of his life. According to tradition, before the battle, the two generals met in person. They spoke. Scipio offered terms. Hannibal answered with his own. They did not agree. On the battlefield, Hannibal lost what had made him unbeatable, his Numidian cavalry. It had crossed to Rome's side. His elephants were scattered. For the first time in his life, his army was encircled by his own maneuver, the very same one he had invented at Cannae. Scipio defeated Hannibal with Hannibal's own weapon. Carthage surrendered. Hannibal fled. He wandered the east, became an advisor to kings fighting Rome. Rome demanded his extradition everywhere he went. 183 BC, he was surrounded in Bithynia, nowhere to run. He reached for the poison he had carried in his ring his entire life. Let us relieve the Romans of their fear. They have waited too long for an old man's death. He was 64 years old. The oath sworn at 9, he kept until his final day. 149 BC, Rome was looking for a reason. Cato the Elder ended every speech in the Senate with the same words. No matter what the speech was about, Carthage must be destroyed. Again and again, for years, until it became true. The Third Punic War was not a war, it was an execution. Carthage was besieged. In 17 days, it was gone. 50,000 survivors sold into slavery, libraries burned, temples destroyed, and all that remained of 600 years of history were the words of enemies. They called the Carthaginians child killers, barbarians, monsters. Archaeologists still debate, is this the truth or the oldest propaganda in history? But one fact the victors could not destroy. The general whom historians place alongside Alexander the Great and Caesar left this world not at the hand of an enemy and not from illness, by his own choice. Rome destroyed everything connected to Carthage, its libraries, its history, its name. And yet, ancient authors tell us Rome built a statue of Hannibal in the very heart of the city. It was an acknowledgement, silent, but more eloquent than any words.